Hi, everybody. I'm Karen. I am a compulsive eater, anorexic, and bulimic. I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the Gray Sheet, commit them to my sponsor. I don't eat in between meals no matter what. Abstinence and my higher power are the most important things in my life today. I came into GreySheeters Anonymous in 2006. Pretty much been here the whole time, and I currently have about 8 years of abstinence. I am a little bit nervous with the being recorded, but I did have the chance to speak at a roundup one time. So I'm glad Peggy only asked me a few days ago rather than 2 months to think about it. Um, I guess it's most important for me to talk to the newcomers. There are a lot of beautiful people here with lots of wonderful abstinence that I know and I love, and that makes it so much easier for me to qualify. I'm not being judged. I'm, not being compared to, and that's what I get from GreySheeters Anonymous, from the people that I know and I trust. Um, I'd like to say that what I would like to be is a walking copy of the big book. I've been in Alcoholics Anonymous for quite a while and been through the steps there, more than once. And the longer I'm in Gray Sheet, the more I realize that the big book is so rich that it will keep giving me guidance. It will keep giving me new ideas, which I need. It will keep helping me to get rid of old ideas. Unfortunately, I currently have a sponsor of about 7 years who is, very much into the big book, and that's just what works for me. And I really resisted that for a long time. I read lots of different literature other than the big book. And my second AA sponsor said to me one time, she goes, "Karen, I want you to go to your self-help bookshelf and throw away every book on that shelf. And the only thing that left is AA literature. And that's the only thing you're allowed to read before you read, novels and things." And I've had good sponsorship, and I've taken good sponsorship for granted. I've sponsored now for several years in Gray Sheet, and it's quite a commitment, and it's quite a showing up for somebody. It's being there for somebody. It's being disciplined. So I so appreciate my sponsor and my past sponsors. Um, and my life changed when I started to weigh and measure. I'll get back to some of the eating, but I don't want to forget to say how dramatically my life changed when I started weighing and measuring. I had been in AA for 6 years, and I was extremely active. I was in Germany. I was just doing everything I possibly could because I was hopeless and suicidal. And I did not know that my eating disorder was killing me, because for me at that time, it was compulsive exercise, complete obsession with my own body, what I ate, what I didn't eat, when I needed to exercise next, when I didn't. And my AA sponsor, my second AA sponsor, said to me, "Karen, you're never at home." And I really didn't know what she meant. And what she meant was I was always out exercising. And I wasn't there for my husband and my two beautiful children. I was physically there, but I wasn't really emotionally available. And Gray Sheet is one of the greatest gifts for me, that one, I get to experience all my own emotions, and two, I get to be there even when it's hard, when it's really, really hard for me to listen to my sons, or when it's hard to listen to Gray Sheeters suffering. I get to be there. A Gray Sheeter moved into our area in Germany after I was in AA for 6 years. And I had been to OA a couple of times, and I had read numerous books on dieting and everything. And I won't mention the author, but people are probably familiar with her, where she basically said, intuitively listen to your body. Listen to when your body tells you're full, like really tune into that. And then there's like a whole book on this. And so I tried doing what she was doing. And I tried, like we all do here. I'll speak for myself. I was desperate. I hated this disease I had. And I could never follow through on these other things. I would try them for a while. I would listen. I'd be like, there is nobody inside me telling me to stop. And I didn't go back to OA, and it may have helped me, but I wasn't ready for it. my sponsor, my first sponsor walked into our little women's group, and we had OA. No, we didn't have OA at that time. We had AAs, ACOAs, we had Al-Anons, and it was just about 6 to 8 of us women. I mean, I was looking for a new AA sponsor, and she came into the room sort of shortly before the meeting started, and she was, she was about 15 years older than me, and she was quiet, and she was listening, and you could just tell that she was very present. And I thought, wow, if she's open to having, before she even opened her mouth, I said, if she's open to having an AA sponsee, sorry about that, um, I'm going to ask her. So we all introduced ourselves, and we went around. She said she was an alcoholic. And then she said, my name is so and so. I'm a compulsive eater, and I weigh and measure. I mean, just like this craziness came out of her mouth. And I was like, that is so insane, But I asked her to be my AA sponsor. And I told a good friend of mine about her. I said, hey, listen, there's this woman who moved into the area and she's lost like 200 pounds. And my friend and I would always talk about food, and my friend was more of an overweight. And I said, you might give her a call and check her out. I think she could help you. And so I didn't see my friend for like another 2, 3 weeks. And when I saw my friend, I just looked at her and I walked up to her and I said, do not tell me you are on that crazy diet thing. And she said, yes, I have for 2 weeks. So that started me and my journey out, which I guess just the example that the example that we set for those around us about how this program works. And I believe it's higher power that comes into my life and changes me. Um, at the time, I was in the military with 2 small children. My husband and I my husband was in the military, and we were traveling quite a bit away from home. And there was a Saturday morning phone meeting that I could have got on, but I just didn't have time for it. I did have a fear at that time that I had a very strong AA program, that if I sifted off into gray sheet, it was scary for me initially, because you hear the stories about the founder of Gamblers Anonymous was in AA, he drifted into gamblers, and then he died drunk. Who knows what it was, but I started weighing and measuring. She told me to call her 5:30 in the morning. I had never gotten up before 7. But I was dying, and I all my life, even after tons and tons of therapy, much really wonderful therapists and psychiatrists, I felt like there was something wrong with me that was never, ever going to be fixed. And I would say about, not doing it perfectly, about 6 months into Gray Sheet, this lifted, this level of depression and anxiety just got enough so that I could say, I want to live. I want to be in this world, and I think I can do it. Um, and that was a miracle, and that's been true ever since. Um, I moved back to the States in '09 after I had been in Gray Sheet for 3 or 4 years. And that was a huge boost to my problem. I had had 60 days, 90 days um, before I got to the States, but the Portland community absorbed me. Um, on my own, what my eating disorder looks like is 5 years through my last 2 years of college and 3 years after that of throwing up every single thing I ate. By within the first 6 months of purging, I threw up everything. I was working in a hospital. I would go and I would just purge around the hospital. I didn't have a toothbrush on me. I was going to see patients. I was powerless. I was disgusted with myself. I hated myself. As soon as I got a car, I didn't have much money in college. As soon as I got a car and I would go home from graduate school, all day long I would restrict or eat sugars and carbs and say, I'm not pulling into the fast food place. I'm not pulling into the fast food place. And my car would absolutely take me there. I would go home, I would study, I would eat that, I would go back out again. And I learned foods that I could purge easily and quickly. Um, in my graduate school, I met my husband and I made him a big pan of things we don't eat. And I was studying that night and I ate 3/4 of the pan and I ate the rest of those. And I just felt the shame again. The powerlessness, is incredible. This the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous was when I got back to Portland. I got back to Portland and I joined a group and we did the 12 steps together. It was out of an OA plan, but it worked amazing for me. And after that, I got a year. Then at that point, I went to Europe to go back to visit, to go to a roundup, and I had a year. And I went out to dinner the very last night of the whole trip, and I was very nervous, and my foundation was shaky. I don't have the foundation. I did not have the foundation I have today that is talked about in the big book. And I got nervous at the dinner and made an excuse and said, this fat from this is going to count as my fat. I knew immediately after I did it that it was wrong, but also I had left my phone at home. So the next time I got a year, again, still a shaky foundation, I went to visit my son. He was away at college, and I had missed him horribly, and he doesn't contact me much. So we had a wonderful 3 or 4 day weekend. And on the last night before we left, I was at the grocery store, and I said, I picked up these things and a fruit in a bucket, and I was weighing and measuring it that night, and I thought, well, this is certainly on the gray sheet. This thing right here is so cute. This is that insanity. This is that thought that will come in and will kill me. And I said, okay, that's on the gray sheet. And I ate it at the airport, and as soon as I put it into my mouth, it was like I came to, it's not on the gray sheet. So I went through the steps with this group, and then I went through the steps with a sponsor, one-on-one, individually, out of the big book all the way through. And that's really, my foundation really became much better. I started doing the things that I have to do every day. I know I have a physical allergy. I know I have an obsession of the mind. I know that there's only a spiritual solution. So that means I have to connect to that higher power each morning. And maybe I forget some mornings, but most mornings I say some prayers before I even get out of bed. My abstinence has to come first. And, the action, the first step is putting that food on the scale, which took me a long time. I was a rusher to learn how to weigh and measure everything exactly as it is, to call no matter what, the slightest little thing that's off there. And by doing that, I begin my recovery. So I have abstinence, which equals abstinence, but it doesn't equal recovery. Recovery is all the things that the big book wants me to do in order to stay abstinent and to pass the message on to others. I lost my job 5-6 years ago, and I'm not able to practice my profession. And for a couple of years, I worked with lawyers to get that back, but that's not happening. And so each day now, I'm a stay-at-home person. My adult sons live with me. My husband lives with me. My primary purpose is to stay abstinent and help other people to achieve abstinence. And whenever I'm in doubt, I can plug into anything, the literature, the phone bridges. When I say, what's happening in my life, I don't know where I'm going. And, that's probably the best thing that's ever happened to me, because when I knew where I was going, it was Karen's plan. Nothing should interfere. It's going to go this way. And I want to plug in for service. For some reason, for me, service was very slow coming. But I can say that I've pretty much done about most every service that's out there. I usually do service on both the Malibu and the Oakland Roundup. I'm on the phone bridge. I'm trying, timing and qualifying. I'm making the phone calls that I need to make. There's always room for improvement. I found a beautiful way to do step 10 about a year and a half ago, and I probably do it 3 nights a week. So I know there's room for improvement there. I recently was in Germany for 3 weeks, and the first week or so was very exciting. I was connecting with people, not as much. I didn't have my meetings to go to. My West Coast people were really and that last week I was there, I started to feel like, what is my purpose? And I realized that I desperately need contact with you guys. I need contact with you so you will encourage me, and I need contact with you so I can encourage you. And I realized that I didn't have that built up there, and I got quite anxious. I did connect with several people here from Europe on the telephone, and they were incredibly helpful. So I am making plans to go back to Germany, but I'm making some very strict guidelines so that I will be safe with my food first, and have the support I need, and to be of service in different ways that I can do. I'm very grateful to be abstinent. I'm so excited that I have a lot to learn. I used to hate that. But it doesn't matter how painful it is. When I learn something new that helps me in my life, my life gets better, and I can pass it on to you, try to pass it on to you. So I think that's all I have. Thanks everybody for letting me share.